Here is the artwork that I also used in my wraparound demo, showing how to create a repeat pattern on paper. So now I'm going to take this basically sketch that's also in perfect repeat now, scan it in, and work with it digitally. This saves a lot of time manipulating the artwork on the computer to figure out the repeat pattern. So I like to start with this basically as a blueprint. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure my scan is straight, and I can just visually see that it's not. So dragging guidelines down from the top and the side, I can see that it's slightly off. It needs to rotate counterclockwise a slight amount. So I'm going to go ahead and say image rotate arbitrary 1 degree counterclockwise and OK. And I can see now that it's very, very close to being straight. So I'm going to turn off my guidelines, which is Command semicolon, and then using my cropping tool, I'm going to drag this down visually to crop it as close as I can to the artwork, and just visually crop, drag, and crop. So on all 4 sides, get this as close as I can, and then image crop. So let's work a little larger. The next thing I'm going to do is look at the size. I need to make sure that this is perfectly square. And so working in pixels, I can read my image size as 2,548 pixels by 2,557 pixels. So that is not quite square. So what I'm going to do is now go back to the canvas size, and I'm going to just make sure I'm working in pixels, and I'm going to make sure I'm going to go ahead and input the same number that I have at the top, 2,548, in the bottom figure. That's basically going to just trim off about 8 pixels, which is barely perceptible to the eye, and say OK and proceed. And so now if I'm to check my image size, it is now perfectly square. Now the thing is that I'm also going to adjust the size to a round number. I could work with it this way, but it's a little easier if you work with a round number. I could either enlarge this to 3,000 pixels, or I could reduce it to 2,000 pixels. I like to work at 3,000 pixels because that's actually equal to 10 inches at 300 dpi. And I like working with 10 inches because it's a very easy number to do the math going forward on all of my applications. So for example, if later I want to enlarge this for wallpaper from 10 inches up to 27 inches, I would enlarge it 270%. If I wanted to reduce it for, say, fabric to any number, let's say 8-inch square, I could reduce it by 80%. So you can see 10 allows me to work with the math very, very easily. Now what I'm going to do is do the wraparound digitally. Just like we did on paper, I cut the paper in half vertically and horizontally and rearranged the tiles so that it brought the top and bottom edges together in the center horizontally, and it brought the left and right edges together in the center vertically. So we're going to do the same thing digitally. So I'm going to go to Filter, Other, Offset, and I'm going to put in half of the dimension horizontally and half of the dimension vertically. So we were working with 3,000 pixels by 3,000 pixels, so we put in 1,500 and 1,500. And this now brings our top and bottom together horizontally and left and right together vertically. And we can see there are a few little gaps, and those are very easy to fix. So what I'm going to do now is with my brush and a black fill color and adjusting my pixel brush nib, I'm going to decide on a thickness, and I'm just going to go around and just gently and quickly retouch all the areas that need retouching. And then with my eraser, I'm going to clean up any seams or any big splotches of dust. Now that I have the artwork all touched up, I'm going to now add color. So let's get our layers palette visible. And I am going to start a new layer, which will be my color, my artwork layer. And then working from the background layer, I'm going to use the magic wand tool with the default setting of 32. It's the tolerance. And I'm going to click on a flower, and I'm going to hold the shift key and simply select a few different flowers. And then I'm going to go to my fill color, and I'm just going to choose a color that visually appeals to me, and I'm going to fill that area with the foreground color. Deselect, which is Command D, and then I'm going to again select with my magic wand a few other areas. Now when you choose things on the sides, you need to choose the matching components. So let's go there, and then I'm going to just choose again a new color. I'm going to test my pattern now by going to Layer, New Fill Layer Pattern. And I'm just going to go with the default settings. It's automatically picking up the first pattern that I have in my top folder, which you can't see hidden here. So I have to navigate down. If I go to this little pull down in the pattern fill, I can navigate down to the latest pattern and say OK. Now it automatically saves it at the exact same scale that we defined it. So in order to see what the repeat looks like, double click and type in 50%. This will now reduce it to half the actual size, and is actually, the pattern is now repeating 4 times, 2 across the top and 2 vertically. I can also reduce that even further if I wanted to see it at a smaller scale. For example, this is 25%. So I'm seeing 4 repeats across and 4 repeats vertically. And so from here, I can actually, if I want to enhance this, I could add a background color, I could add texture, I could add gradients, I could add extra line detail. So that's basically that shows you how to make a very easy repeat pattern in Photoshop using the wraparound method, both hard copy and digitally, without any math involved.